Hi everyone, my name is Lela and welcome to When the Heart Speaks. So for today's episode, I have some lovely ladies with me today. TJ, Toni, and Janine. Ladies, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So today's episode is going to be a little deeper, a little bit more vulnerable than the previous topic. Today, I kind of want to talk about childhood. I want to talk about what we went through as young women, and I want to know what is something we wish we knew when we were younger. So with that said, Janine, what is something you would tell your younger self?
So I would tell my younger self that home is within you, and it's about being rooted in yourself. And for me personally, I found that by being rooted in God. It might not be for everybody, but it's for me. When I was younger, I was always very adaptable, running around, having different friend groups, and I was always trying to find my identity. And I found my identity in God, being God's daughter specifically, So that would be what I would tell my younger self, so that I wouldn't have been as restless.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like trying to fit in with other people.
Trying to fit in, trying to change who I am, changing myself depending on who I'm with.
Right.
Yes, that was big for me. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Well, for me, I came from my culture, my background, my family were very performance driven. So I always felt that I had to have it all put together. I had to have straight A's. The sports that I played, I had to perform the best, score the most goals, get the most points, whatever it was. So I would tell myself that it's okay not to be perfect. It's not okay not to, have all the right answers. It's okay to fail. Once in a while or all the time. And I think I would have learned so much more and would have been that much of a better student, that much of a better athlete if I was comfortable recognizing my failures. So instead of, trying to hide them, I could work on them because I couldn't work on them without admitting that they existed.
Right. And you know what? And failure is not a bad thing. Failure is just another way for you to realize there's something else there's another way for you to do certain things. And I think with failure, it's more about what can you learn from that situation. And as long as you learn from failure, like I feel like I've learned such powerful lessons in my life because I failed.
And just springboarding off of that, definitely growth mindset is critical. And one thing I wish I could tell my younger self was that it's okay to not be okay. That it's okay to allow yourself to go through be it the emotions, be it the physical adjustments, or even just the mental sort of buildup that you need in not being okay to get to being okay. Because I think it's countercultural to say, hey, how are you doing? I'm not doing well.
Right.
You're like, wait, what?
Because
it would like say I'm good. But I wish I could tell my younger self that it's okay to not be okay and to allow myself to go through that process to get into being okay within my own right.
And it's so interesting because what I would tell my younger self is the exact opposite that you would tell your younger self. So what I would tell my younger self is that I am okay. Whereas I grew up always feeling not okay. I always felt there was something wrong with me. I always felt so awkward. I always felt like just not good enough. And it was just such a strong belief that I had for myself. So now that I'm older and I think about my younger self, I would just hold my younger self, give her a hug and tell her that she's okay and that she's good enough and everything is going to work out. I had this constant fear, anxiety that I was just going to fail, just be and just accomplish nothing and my life would end. But I was okay. Okay, so my next question is, what is a defining moment or a memorable moment that you had that shaped you when you were younger?
Well, let me jump right in.
Go right ahead, Toni.
All right. So I would say it's kind of picking up on my response about not knowing it was okay to fail. So, excuse me. So when I got into university, I was still very performance driven, and just life was different. Success looked different, and it was a lot more difficult for me to achieve that level of success that I was used to achieving. So I found myself struggling. I found myself, failing at things that I used to be able to do easily. So I was hiding a lot more, because before I was pretty good at most things. There were only a few things I had to hide, but now there were just a lot of things I struggled with. And it started challenging who I was and who I was presenting myself and who I was pretending to be. So I had the reputation. I lived in the library,
I remember.
And just because of that, people just automatically assumed, okay, this chick's always in the library. She must be super smart. She must be getting straight A's on the dean's list all day, every day. But that wasn't the truth. That wasn't my reality. And then eventually, I think I probably was just struggling with a lot of things, and I was just, pretending I was okay. Like you were mentioning, I didn't know it was okay to open up to people. I didn't know it was okay to just admit, like, I'm struggling with this, or just to share what I was going through. And I didn't even recognize that maybe other people were going through that same thing. So I was just so used to being so put together, and even my closest friends, even my siblings, they just didn't really know what my struggle was. And then I found myself eventually, I was just very sad and even depressed. I wasn't clinically diagnosed, but sometimes if you're crying every day, there reaches a point where you kind of know that you're going through something. So I remember I finally opened up. And that was my defining moment. I opened up. It was to one of the pastors at a church I was going to at the time. And it was just the first time I was vulnerable, saying, you know what, I'm not perfect. I'm not getting straight A's. And it was just the first time I was, to some people, that's been their whole life. But for me, that was important for me. And I grew up in the church, so I always knew it was important to have a relationship with God, but I don't think I was capable to fully recognize my need for God and my need for Jesus, or even the whole story, the whole grace, the whole story behind love, because I thought it was within myself. I was so busy trying to be like, I'm righteous, I'm good, I'm perfect. Exactly. That I didn't really recognize that I needed somebody else to make up for my, deficiencies. So that was my defining moment.
Just to continue in that line of thinking, it really was one of those where, similarly, I grew up in the church. Similarly, you hear the story, you know the story, you hear the words, but really there was no meaning to you personally about that, or there was no meaning to you personally from within, because I thought that God's love, God's grace, God himself is something that I had to earn. Right? And I remember the defining moment for me was growing up in the church, growing up with all these ideologies and just the expectations around me. You hear that when you go into the world, if ever you drink or if ever you smoke or if ever you do this, something's gonna happen. Right? So the first time I smoked, I expected to be hit by lightning. That didn't happen. So I'm like, maybe y'all don't know what you're talking about. And one thing led to another, and I found myself in a place, in a space that I never thought that I would be in. And a defining moment for me was one night coming back to my house, getting ready to jump into bed, taking off the makeup, only God knows how, because I was drunk. And I remember taking off the makeup, looking in the mirror and not being able to recognize the person in the mirror. And it wasn't recognizing the person because, my makeup looked so good, and then it came up, I'm like, oh my God, girl. But it really was a soul thing. It was a soul that, had I talked to my younger self, as your previous question said, about what I would look like in my soul, within myself at that age, that is definitely not someone I would have painted down the picture, right? Who is this chick that smokes or drinks? Who is this chick that does shenanigans till 3 a.m? Who is this person? Especially having the moral system that you grew up with. So I definitely did not recognize who I was, and that broke me because it was one of those things, well, if you don't know who you are, the heck are you going to do with the rest of your life? And it began my journey of just soul searching and finding who I was. And even as relating it back to your first episode, which I watched and I loved, self-love, right?
Okay.
Did I even like myself? How could I like myself or love myself if I didn't know myself?
Right.
And that led me right back to Christ. And it really became a point where God himself had to open up his man and say, hey, girl, if you want to find out who you are, I have to be the one that tells you.
Right.
You cannot make these things up. Society can't make it up for you. That was defining in my life.
That's so beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I went through a similar experience when, so mine's actually very recent. I moved to Toronto about 1.5 years ago. And before I moved, I was thinking I was going to change my life and moving to a different city. And I remember one of my best friends at the time, we got into a huge fight before I moved at this party. We were both drinking. And she was like, moving cities isn't going to fix your problems. Why are you running away from your problems? And I was so mad. I was like, I'm not running away from anything. I'm just living my best life. Anyways, lo and behold, I moved here. Little do you know that when you move cities, you're bringing your problems with you because they're within you.
Right.
So when I moved here, I started doing the same things I used to do in my relationships, because I really do believe that everything that manifests physically is a reaction to what's inside of you. Everything that goes on around you. So obviously, since I was broken inside and trying to look for self-worth in other people, as I said before, I had to find my worth and identity in God. So I wasn't as close to God at the time. So when I moved here, I was doing the same mistakes, having the same relationship mistakes, meeting the same guys, and I'm like, what is wrong? Like, I couldn't meet a guy in Calgary. Why can't I meet a good guy in Toronto? And it hit me. Like, one day I was looking in the mirror. It was August 2017, I remember. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, wow, I look different. I'm depressed. My skin is inflamed. I have so much acne. I'm losing hair. Like, my gums are inflamed. I am depressed. There's something wrong with me. So at that moment, I guess, was my defining moment, in a sense where I told myself I was gonna make a change. And I wasn't sure how. I didn't know how. I had no idea. I just prayed to God. I was like, God, I'm giving it to you. Like, I promise you, from this day on, I'm changing my life. And that's very recent. It's only been 1.5 years, and my life, I feel like I've grown like 7 years. Like, when God is in your life, he matures you lightning speed, man.
It's true.
Lightning speed.
Yes.
I'm a different person.
Wow.
Like, even the way I react to situations.
Yeah.
So that would be for me.
That's so powerful. And honestly, I just love what you said about how you just wanted to change. Like, you just wanted something different. And I believe that you can choose that. You can make a decision to be different. It just takes like a conscious decision. And that was like, for me, my defining moment was like, I'm at this party and I was in university. I was in first year university and I was running track, and I had actually just medaled at the Canadian Championships, and everyone's celebrating, everyone's great. And I just knew, like, although I'm running well and doing well, I'm so unhappy. So after the meet, all of us get together, we drank, and I got so drunk, and I just did things like I was kind of girl that would just share everything. So the whole world knew my story. The whole world knew my secrets. And I just, the next day, just feeling so embarrassed of the way that I was. And so a defining moment for me was like, I'm so unhappy, and like, success is not helping me in any way. And I'm making these decisions that are like, I get embarrassed, and I'm not addressing how I'm really feeling. So I need to just figure out what I want and who I want to become. And so literally I found this girl, and she brought me to her church, and my life has never been the same ever since. And so that was definitely a defining moment for me. And kind of similar to you, is just making a decision that you want your life to be different. And you're just like, I've had enough. Enough is enough. I need to do something different.
Yeah, I think it all starts with that choice. And the thing I love about God is that he's a loving father, and he's not going to force it on you to make that choice to believe in him. It's just like, it's up to you. I'll always love you, but it's up to you to choose to come closer to me. It's so amazing.
It's a choice.